Hey everyone, or the one everyone that is here. Hey, this is going to be a quick one because I'm getting ready to go out and work in my yard a little bit. Because of the stroke, I'm trying my damnedest to regain a little bit of function. Damn, my nose is red. My nose is infected. It's getting better, but in the meantime, I look like Rudolph, and that's okay. I am Suzanne Titkemeyer. If you don't know who I am, I had a column at Pathos, no longer quivering for almost 10 years. I worked with and helped train a certain somebody whose name I'm never going to mention ever again. So, here we are. I haven't really kept up with a lot of the fundamentalist, quiverful cultural enforcers. But somebody sent me the other day, since I've stopped talking about Larry Solomon, he's gotten most bold. He's put together a pile of websites. He has not just biblicalgenderroles.com, which is his main website, he has a podcast, he has a biblical sexology website, which makes me laugh the hardest. Hey, Kentucky. He has a political one, which is filled with the kind of crazy right wing waving ravings mixed with Bible you could imagine. And his theology is pretty bad. He has publicly stated before on his blog that he withholds medication from his wife. He said that before, pain medication, because her attitude isn't right. Hey, Heidi. And there are a lot of other things that he's said that he's done through the years that just blow my mind. He believes in polygamy. He says polygamy is biblical, not that he would ever have a polygamous relationship, but he believes that it is what God wants. It's one of the many ways God wants. So there's that. Larry likes to say that women are to submit to sex cheerfully and enthusiastically every single time your husband requests it. You have to, not only do you have to submit every single time, you have to be enthusiastic and pretend you're enjoying it, whether you're enjoying it or not. He has advised men that if they have to force their wives to have sex, which is actually the legal definition of the R word, as we all know, that you can't look at her crying, weeping face while you're doing that to her because it's a sin for him to see you crying. So there's that. He's got some of the strangest, he's playing biblical twister to come up with some of his definitions and some of his things. So I thought once I quit, you know, and he's very minor league. He is a fat, balding little Midwestern guy, the kind of beta man you would think wouldn't be talking all this big trash because he can't live out any of it, obviously. So there's that. I know who he really is. I've got his real name. I do keep tabs on him. He's very milk toast in his real life. He's very crazy in his uh Aaron reporting. My reporting every time his stuff pops up on social media, and it's abusive. Almost all of his theology has an element of abuse of women in it. So, and I had to laugh because he accused Doug. What is Doug's last name? Doug Wilson, a blog in my blog, and Canon Press, and all those crazy books, like the crazy book I did the review of last week. He accused Doug, who is very much, Doug is very much another one of those submission dudes, okay? He is a patriarch of the first water. Oh, yeah, spanking his wife. That's another thing he advocated for. He accused Doug Wilson of being a complementarian. I was like, have you ever read Doug? He even said that John Piper doesn't go far enough. And John Piper is pretty extreme. Now, Doug doesn't have as much influence as you would think because he's up there in Moscow, Idaho. He's got his own little sphere of influence. He's tried to take his influence other places and it goes sideways, like that novel of his that makes no sense that I reviewed the other day. Ride, Sally, Ride, from Mustang Sally, Ride, Sally, ride. So there's that. And he said he's complementarian. No such thing. Doug Wilson advocates almost exactly the same thing Larry does, but he doesn't go as far as Larry. His abuse isn't as far as Larry's. Larry takes it to the bizarre nth degree, including spanking your wife and taking away all financial anything from her. All of that he does. So someone sent me a thing the other day, and I was really shocked because Larry had done for his podcast a 5-part series about staying with your husband if he's abusive towards you. That's a common thing in Quiverful to preach that, but 99.99% of the time, that's coming from other women. Lori Alexander has preached on this, has taught on this. Nancy Campbell has taught on this. Debbie Pearl has even talked about it in her books, including saying that if your husband is doing SA to one of your children, you turn him into the police, you have him convicted, but you support him all along. You bring the children to see him in prison, you visit him in prison, and when he comes back out, you make sure that your children are moved into another place and you continue as his wife. That is how twisted the theology gets with that. Now, why? Because, and I have to say this, the 3 documentaries I've recently been talked to about, I've been interviewed for, each one of them came up with the same question at some point. Why do women put up with this? And I had to back up and explain why women put up with this. And I'm going to go to that too in a second because the cultural enforcers are just reinforcing a really awful theology. They're not inventing the theology. Okay, in this kind of thing, what they do is most of the time in these more extreme ones like Quiverful, you will have the wife drag the husband and the children into the theology. It's almost always across the board the wife. It's very seldom is this ever the husband. And you would think it would be husbands because husbands are pretty much allowed a free pass to do whatever the heck they want to do. They're just going to wrap it in a Bible verse and justify every stupid thing they're doing. So most of the time it's women. Why? Most of the time you see it's very bad marriages people are doing this in. The marriage is not happy. They're not happy. The spouse isn't happy. So they start searching for something to fix this marriage. It's not actually marriage counseling or going to therapy themselves or working on themselves or trying to understand or trying to talk to their spouse. Somebody at some point pitches them this extreme theology and says, if you just become 100% submissive in the right way, if you're submissive enough, here, submissive enough, and you are joyful enough, you read your Bible enough, you pray enough, and you lay yourself out as an offering every day before God, before Christ, and God will change and resurrect your husband entirely because of your sacrifice of being this completely sacrificial person. That God will honor that. And your husband will be so embarrassed by seeing how righteous you are that he will be changed and he will rise and call you blessed. That is what they teach. So these women that are in very bad marriages, they come along, they join this stuff, they think it's going to fix everything. If you submit enough, if you're joyful enough, if you do homeschool right, if you pray enough, if you read your Bible enough, if you're kind to, well, take that one back. I was going to say if you're kind to others enough. No, 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 that doesn't count. But if you check all the little boxes that the high demand religion requires, then your sacrifice will be honored. God will redeem your husband. You're going to have the man of your dreams who's going to treat you wonderfully because you're submissive. So women join because of this, and they drag the husband and the children into it, even reluctantly. And the children get with the program because they're children. They have no choice. You're doing this thing. And eventually, it's like brainwashing. Hey, Cheryl. So eventually everybody gets on board. And when the husband realizes that he has a get out of trouble card called certain Bible verses, usually he turns into the petty tin plated dictator that was lurking behind the beta man all along. So it's not unheard of for female cultural enforcers to say that if you're in these relationships, these bad relationships, and you're being abused mentally, physically, spiritually, or financially, that you must stay because you stay and you submit harder. Because your submission, like I said earlier, will be such a witness to the husband that he will be embarrassed and eventually turn from his sinning to call you blessed. That's the thinking, that's the theology. Well, I went and listened to some of Larry's podcasts. I didn't listen to all five parts. And Larry is coming about it from a different way. He is basically using the same theology, but he is saying that God's not going to honor any kind of rebellion in your life if you're a woman. And rebellion could be something as simple as saying, in that theology, something as simple as saying, hey, do you want baked potatoes or do you want french fries to your husband? When you know he would prefer the french fries each and every time. It's a total control. Now, he also was trying to say that he's not like that. He believes wives can make some of their own decisions because while the husband is the head of everything, the wife is the manager of the home. You can make those decisions, but we see again and again in Larryland that's not true. In this theology, men are exactly the opposite of what they're trying to be. They're petty, thin skinned, unable to take any kind of, I'm just going to say pushback, even when it's not pushback. Just, even when you're watching your husband do something that you know is going to work out disastrously, and you say, hey, wait a minute, maybe you shouldn't do that, and this is why. You're not allowed that. If you start doing that there, that's considered rebellion instead of what it actually is. Two people who love each other, who are working in a partnership, who are trying to watch out for their family and for everything else. So they don't even believe in that. They believe the woman's just got to be like the smiling sex robot that cooks, cleans, and homeschools. That's basically what it boils down to. You're not even free to think your own thoughts. They tell you your thoughts have to line up a certain way. They do that for depression too in this thing. I would smack him if he tried to talk. Oh, tell me that. Janine, I think a lot of us would smack him. I think any man that tried that with me would be like, no. And I tried that. I tried this theology when we were quiverful. For not very long, but I did try it. Both my husband and I hated it. It didn't work for us. Our relationship does not work where there's a power differential. It just never has. It has always worked when we're on a level playing field and we're both saying, hey, I don't think you should do that. Hey, I think that's a good idea. Um, that's the only way it's ever worked for us. It just doesn't work with what he's trying to say, and I don't see real justification for a lot of what he's saying in the Bible, regardless. You're supposed to make each other better. Now, that's what makes me laugh about some of these um, good Christian cultural enforcers, especially Lori Alexander. There's been so many times she's given subtle shade to Ken that he doesn't even pick up on it. And some of her tales, the way she's treated Ken, her kids, she's the abusive one in that family, it looks like from here. At least that's what I'm picking up. That's my opinion. Um, Allegedly, so there we go. But I try not to ever talk about her because, like I said, brain tumor. I think brain tumor is running that. Brain tumor is running that thing. So I try not to ever say anything about that. Larry, though, Larry is just a wannabe. Larry has not a lot of real power in his life, so this is what he chooses to do behind a fake name. While in real life, being a smiling, milk toast kind of guy, it looks like. So he's kind of like an incel who's getting regular sex, is having regular sexy times. And when I see his writing, I mean, it's obvious that his main thing in his life is he hates women. He wants to be in control so badly that he's willing to be as abusive as possible. Now, in his earlier writings, he used to whine about how his first wife had affair after affair on him when they were married. And so his second wife, he was happy that she was disabled because she can't go anywhere or do anything. She's always there under his thumb, obviously. So that's a pretty weird dynamic. I gotta say, I figured out who Larry's first wife is, and I went and looked at her Facebook, and she looks perfectly nice, normal, and happy. Hey, Hermie's mom. It So she looks happy. I don't know why that would be, except that maybe she's not under his thumb, trying to live under the 10,000 rules of Melmac, I think it was, that the Jews were trying to do. So there's that. I think Larry is possibly one of the more dangerous ones because he hides what he is. You've got your jovial, smiling guy who's actually the troll under the bridge, pushing a very unhealthy, abnormal way of life as though it is normal and the rest of us are crazy and living in not a normal life. I can't stand that. I can't stand people who hide behind those sort of things. When I wrote for Pathos, I wrote under my own name. People that think that they're going to do something like that and they hide under fake names like Larry, they're just trying to disguise what it is that they really are from their families. I think it makes them rather disingenuous. But Larry and the others also claim if you're submitting that hard and you're doing things right, then you are protected by God from having the kind of physical violence that would take your life. That is not true. That's one thing I do know about Quiverful. There are a pile of bodies. There are a pile of women that have been killed by their husbands. There are a pile of women who are discouraged from ever seeking any kind of health care, who have died from easily treatable illnesses. I've known a ton of them. I had one of my close personal friends died of uterine cancer that had spread to her brain because she didn't believe in getting yearly checkups. She didn't believe in medicine at all. So she refused to get yearly checkups of any sort, much less the pap smear thing that we're all supposed to do. Except for me, I've had a hysterectomy, a complete one. So there's nothing there to turn cancerous. So the part I can skip, at least, the pap smear. I can't skip riding the boob mangler 3000, which is what I like to call the, no, what do you call that? That's what I like to call a mammogram because if you have larger breasts, it can be difficult. And I'm one of those people with dense breast tissue. So I got to ride the mangler for a long time and they got to take multiple. And sometimes I have to come back in and it's like, oh no, please don't. Well, hey, Marie. So everyone in, a lot of people in Quiverful, let me say that, not everyone, and in evangelical Christianity, don't believe in doctors at all. They believe in getting prayer. So my friend went all these years without pap smears, without riding the boob mangler 3000. And what happened was she started having severe headaches. They became so severe she had to go to the ER. By the time she went to the ER and they scanned her head, the cancer had gone to her brain. They gave her weeks to live, a couple of weeks. And she spent the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of her life going from not treatment center to treatment center. She went from ministry to ministry trying to get somebody to lay hands on her and heal her. She went to Bethel in Redding, California. She went to one in Oklahoma. She went all over the place until she'd had all this prayer and it was hadn't changed the outcome. She ended up in hospice the last couple of days of her life and wasted all that time that she could have been spending with her precious daughters and grandkids. chasing a miracle that was just not going to happen for a condition that she could have prevented just by having regular pap smears. And I was so mad at her when all that went down. Mad at her for saying that, modern medicine was what do they call it in my old church? An idol. That you shouldn't take drugs, you shouldn't, any of that. My internet was cutting out, so I mean, uh, I'm curious to know more about Aaron's comment to Larry's advocates for husbands spanking their wives. Um, Aaron, did you say anything to Larry? I woulda, but Larry's got me blocked. That's one thing that I found about internet culture, and I found this when I was writing NLQ. Larry once called me that crazy feminist writer. Well, I worked that into my biography at Pathos for a long time on my Twitter. That was the thing, is like Suzanne, that crazy feminist writer. I still have that on my Facebook page. I've embraced that because I know I'm a little bit left the norm in some ways. I'm an artist, so I do crazy stuff routinely, and I don't have a problem with being called that crazy feminist writer because I'm always for women and children. I don't concentrate on men with anything I've done with this ministry because me speaking these things is not for them. It is for the women and children that I'm seeing get hurt because they are mostly the victims in these types of high demand religious groups. It's the women that bear the brunt and do all the work and a lot of the emotional heavy lifting too. So many times I was thinking about that earlier because so many quiverful mothers I've known, they're the ones that not only school the children, clean the house, do the laundry, sew clothing for the children, cook everything from scratch. They're the ones doing all the plumbing work. They're the ones repainting and re-wallpapering and trying to gild that sow's ear into the silk purse because most of them cannot afford to do these things. They do everything. I have to call back into, yeah. It is pretty scary what they're doing. So the women do everything in that type of religion. And eventually, almost everybody I know has a breaking point or breakdown at some point. My friend died without having hers, even though I saw her go through a number of scary changes through the years that would have ran anyone else off religion. She just doubled down through the kids in the wheelbarrow and ran even farther in, like in the movie Hedwig and the Angry Inch, where he said when the Berlin Wall was built, his mother threw him into a wheelbarrow and ran even deeper into East Germany. So there's that. So I it's taken me a lot to get out of that. Going back to thinking women shouldn't get health care. Men get health care. You see a man in evangelical town, Fundy town, get a hangnail and he's running to the doctor. A woman, they're encouraged to have home births. That's why there's a high rate of death among home birthers in the evangelical movement. Many of them, it's a higher death rate than there is going to the hospital and having your baby. Now, I can understand why you'd want to do that. My last birth, I could have been at home. Could have been at home. My husband could have caught the baby. Was in labor like 3 hours and out she popped. Perfect, after a couple of pushes. Everything went smoothly and I could have had a home birth. And I thought about that a lot since then. But in Quiverful, you're talking about these petty dictator men. They don't have outside jobs and Larry's like that too. Larry repairs computers in his home and does other internet things in his home. He doesn't have an actual job he goes to. A lot of guys in Quiverful and in evangelical and fundamentalist religions, that's what they do. They don't believe in working for another man. Working for another man is considered putting yourself under another man's power. So they encourage each other to make these ways where they have ways to make money where they're not beholden to the man. So there's that. And you see a lot of these guys do some pretty substandard kind of jobs, and they are acting like it's the best thing in the world. They came up with it. But here, when they're doing that, they're not getting the kind of benefits that you would get at a good job. My husband worked for the federal government for years and years and years and years, and before that, he was in the Army. We have always had good health care. We've always had, performance bonuses, things like that with his job. And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine about that yesterday because I've always had either full time jobs for a short period of time, 3 or 4 years, or I've had part time jobs that I could do that didn't disturb what was going on with the family because of that. And I never asked for benefits because of that. But these guys are doing the sort of thing where there are no benefits, there's no health care. So the kids, the wife don't get the proper health care. Husband runs off and gets health care whenever he needs it. Women die in childbirth. Women die of easily preventable things like my friend that died from uterine cancer that had gone everywhere. So there's that. What I found particularly telling about when my friend died, and I was out, I'd been out some years by that point, maybe 6 or 7 years, was a lot of the women that I knew from my old Quiverful church and hadn't been speaking to me and called me an apostate and all this other crap. They all contacted me after my friend died, and they all wanted to know if I thought that she'd been promiscuous and that's why she'd come down with uterine cancer. Because that's the other thing that flourishes in these groups is medical misinformation. They spread it. I mean, stuff like if you clean with Lysol, you're going to get cancer. Just stupid stuff. They share it as if it's fact. I'm not seeing a legitimate study that says that mopping your floor with Lysol causes cancer. I just haven't seen anything like that. And even back then, I would have to see legitimate proof, studies, all of that stuff before I would say, yeah, that's what causes that. Um, they create very weak, angry men, Cheryl. You were exactly right. Yep, Janine, the cultural enforcers, the female cultural enforcers, the ones that urge everybody to keep on going. And if you admit you're broken down, if you admit you're in a bad place, if you admit you're struggling, it's considered a bad witness. And so they pretty much silence you. They silence you hard. And don't think they don't take pot shots at each other. I remember helping a friend of mine pack for a move. Okay, this is a friend of mine that had 11 children because she was quiverful. We all went to church together. Now I have 3 children. One from my first very quick marriage because I was married for a very short period of time in school, and two with my husband Jim here that I'm married to. Um, they all knew about the two because I didn't bring my other one was older and she was out of the house by the time I became quiverful. So I was helping her pack, and somebody else showed up spontaneously with homemade pizza and salad and stuff for the family, which was a very nice gesture. And I will say that at least that's one thing positive is it was a community. You could count on other people to help you when things went haywire, or if you were trying to do something big, they would help you. And I was the recipient of that kindness many times, and I do thank those people for it. But the pizza came, the salad came. I didn't know this person. This was someone from another church in the community. So my friend Linda introduced me to this other person and said, hey, this is my semi heathen friend Suzanne, who only has 2 children. I was blown away. I had no idea that that was how Linda viewed me until that very moment. So while they're creating these weak men and they're playing, look at me, I am the bestest, most special, most righteous person, they're also subtly throwing shade on each other. And it becomes a game of one upsmanship, particularly at women's groups. People ask me why I had stopped going to women's Bible studies and things, and why I stopped going to women's outings with the church, because they have them here too. And I said, I don't do that anymore because the games that are played there, there's nothing good or positive that comes out of it. It's all shade, gossip, and collect information on your quote rivals unquote. So there's that. I just won't go as a result. And I don't recommend going to most women's Bible studies. There are some that are good. There's some groups that are good. But if you're in a quiverful fundamentalist type church, it's just going to be game playing. With your strong personality, I can't imagine you attending without being burned at the stake. Well, they do. Well, Janine, I was a lot more submissive in those days as far as around other people. I kept my thoughts to myself because obviously I didn't agree with them on every single thing. And Soulshine, it's not every Christian woman. It's certain. It's like a certain subset. And Larry's part of that. Larry Sullivan. It's a certain subset of Quiverful where they're doing this, and fundamentalist evangelicalism. It's just a small subset, and and it was hard for me. I had to bite my tongue 100,000 times, but I would go to those things. But you have to understand, when I joined, I was in possibly the worst mental space I've ever been in my life because I was dealing with a 4-year old with a mystery illness. My daughter's platelets died off for no reason. They couldn't figure out why her platelets were dying off. They couldn't figure it out, and my life was going back and forth to UVA for her to have treatment. That was it. I would live and die by her platelet counts, and they tanked for a long time. It was like up and down, up and down, up and down until whatever it was that caused this lifted, and it got to the point where we were getting a referral to Sloan Kettering in New York because there are doctors there that have treated ITP and have some handle on it. At UVA, it was a little bit of a problem because they hadn't had very many cases. So they trotted every single medical student through my daughter's room the time she was hospitalized. And I understand doctors who are learning must learn, and to do that, they must be exposed. But it really made for a hard time. So that left me just emotionally bereft and wrestling with God, saying, I will do what you want to save my child. Save my child. So there was that. It was really hard for me to hold my tongue, but I kept saying to myself, well, they know better than me about this. I'm not religious. I wasn't raised religious. I went to Catholic school, which is a whole different ball game. And so I suspended my judgment on some of this, which was ridiculous because, the tale I told the other day about the guy that forced his wife out in the middle of the night, his wife with MS, to buy walnuts and syrup to put on his ice cream at midnight when it was snowing. That's the kind of submission I'm talking about. That is the kind of petty, tin plated dictator where there's no love of Christ. Christ doesn't get mentioned very much. Love flies out the window unless they're using love to beat on somebody and say, I'm saying this to you in love, sister, because I used to get that a lot too. And there was that. So there was that. I was pretty much that was pretty much how it was. So I was bargaining with God. My child was sick. I was trying everything beyond medicine, including going around to these places like my friend did and getting prayer for my daughter, who did improve eventually. So there was that. And like I said, I had a failing business that would have failed no matter because we had a flood come through there that just devastated the area and ruined what we had there. So it was a really hard time for me. And when people talk about suicide, I fully understand that. I'm not somebody that normally goes there when they're thinking about hard times, but there are a couple of hard times in my life where I've contemplated it. I contemplated it then, but the thing that stopped me was my children and the fact that my daughter was so ill at the time. And I knew that if I took the ultimate way out, that she was possibly going to suffer and maybe not even get the right kind of treatment. Because I certainly did not trust my husband to do that at the time. I do trust him now, but there's that. And yesterday, I'm sorry I didn't do a video yesterday. A couple things happened. One of the things that's been going on with me is since I got my diagnosis about the several thalamic strokes apparently I've had, one in utero and one recently, they're trying to get my blood pressure straightened out. I normally have low blood pressure. They think that at night I'm having extremely high blood pressure. Now, and that's when the strokes are happening. Now, one of the things we're doing is they're doing the medications all over the place. I'm not doing well with that. I'm just going to be real frank with you. I'm not doing well with the constant blood pressure tweaks, and somehow this has somehow triggered my asthma, my mast cell. Yesterday, maybe the day before, my oxygen levels tanked hard to like 89%. And I was taking things people were saying on Twitter that had nothing to do with me and reacting, because what happens to me when my oxygen levels get super low like that is I either turn extremely weepy and miserable, or I get fighty bitey, and I went fighty bitey this time. But after a couple hours, I went, oh, maybe I should check my oxygen levels. So I did, and when I was like, oh, holy cow! So I went and laid down, and it was fine. So for me, this has really been in some ways, a really hard time this last 6 months or so because of this. And I just want to I just want to say, keep on top of everything for yourself, your medicine, your medical needs. I've been using a VPAP machine for over 20 years now, and they're telling me that 20 years of high pressurized air has probably made this blood pressure thing start happening at night. So I've got that. I'm trying. I'm having difficulty with the medicines and all that. So you may see me dip in and out, dip in and out. People told the medicine was worse than the illness. I think so. Janine, I think so. Because I'm now having blood pressure problems I didn't have before. I have had 5 days of high blood pressure during the day, and I never have high blood pressure during the day. That's so rare for me. I'm usually somewhere around 110 over 70. Usually, I've been like 145 over like 90 off and on, and they've had to tweak the medicines result, and I ain't happy. So you may or may not see anything more. And I have stopped talking about without a box of Kleenex. Her lawyer's letter may be not worth the cyber paper it's written on. But I'm not a dirty deleter, so I don't delete anything. I'm gonna have to write her attorney a email and say, "Hey, I'm gonna comply with your don't delete your shit," as Emily D. Baker says, but only because I'm not a dirty deleter. And number two, she has deleted all conversations between us, not I. So I have nothing but a few little screen caps I put up on Twitter the other day when she was saying she didn't know me. I wanted to prove that she did know me, that I had actually worked with training her when she first came on at Pathos. Also, so that's the only thing I have. I just have a few screen caps. I've only talked to Steve McRae on Twitter. I have our entire Twitter conversation. Steve has it too. If her people want it, they can have it. There's nothing there that's very revealing, except that Steve and I are friends and we talk about some crazy shit sometimes, but that is about it. Yeah, if you don't see me and I'm not on Twitter and I am not here, guess what? And it's funny because I'm usually in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out all day. Like in a few minutes, I'm going to go weed my garden. I haven't done that in a while because I've been shitty feeling. And that's the other thing. My neurologist wants me to go see a physiotherapist who is in Escazú, which is about 5 hours from here. And I'm reluctant to do that because sometimes physical therapy can help. But I think with the balance, I think for me, it's going to be gradually taking over my old roles, which I'm working on. I sweep every day now. I'm getting better at that. I'm starting to work in the yard some. I'm using the clippers. But instead of going whole hog for hours and hours on end and going out and do, I'm just do little bits every day, and every day I get a little stronger. I'm going to add in the exercise today. I'm going to add in the life cycle thingy out there, and I'm going to gradually come back. I'm working on that. I'm working on everything. So that may be a time suck too. But if you have to get a hold of me, know I will be around. You can just PM me at any point, leave a message, hit up my email, hit me up on Twitter, and I will usually see it within 2 or 3 hours. Unless I'm out, like yesterday, we went to Santa Cruz for the day. And I just have to tell you, Santa Cruz is the most beautiful little town. It's everything's old there, most everything, and they have a beautiful park in the middle of town that's got statues of guys riding bulls because bullfighting is a huge thing in this part of Costa Rica. They have statues of the Incans that lived in this area, the Indians that lived in this area, the natives, all sorts of things like that. They have this incredible dome that you can go under that's acoustically perfect that has the strangest statues attached to it, like giant snakes eating people and things. So I'm always happy to go to Santa Cruz for the day, and that's what I did yesterday too for part of the day. And anybody comes to see us and wants to see real Costa Rica, I take them to Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is the not touristy; it's the real Costa Rica with the real Costa Ricans. And like I said the other day on my Costa Rican Minute, Costa Rica's greatest natural resource is not the animals or the beautiful landscape. It is their people. Their people are wonderful. So there you go. You know about Larry now. Go read Larry's websites if you want to be horrified. It's biblicalgenderroles.com or biblicalsexology.com. And he has a podcast. I recommend, if you can, go through some kind of thing that will allow you to disguise your IP address or doesn't give him hits through Google. Because Larry is always gleefully chortling about making money off of his crap. You are going to come back. I'm fighting, lighting a candle and saying a prayer for your health now. Oh, thank you so much, Janine. I'm trying to come back. And it's been a lot harder this time than it was the first time. And the first time, it was mostly because if you have a brain injury, there is a fatigue beyond fatigue that you suffer for a good 6 months or so. I didn't get as much of that this time. So there's that. And that's what I'm fighting with. I just wanted to let you guys know because I haven't quite been myself in a long time, and I know that. I started feeling better. I still haven't talked to my mother about this. I've got to tell her what happened eventually. But I finally got to where I could even talk to my family about it. It's just one of those things. So I'm going to keep fighting the good fight for as long as I can and exposing these people that are coming up with this crazy theology, especially guys like Larry. I think Larry is probably pretty without influence, but you never know. When I had NLQ, I had started talking about a guy named Von Ullman. Von set up a marriage workshop at a YMCA facility, if I remember right. And we got that shut down. We got that shut down in a hurry because he was charging people to match up their 12 to 18-year-old kids in courtships and marriages. And we got that shut down. The Young Turks did a segment on Von Ullman where they quoted me extensively, and he's pretty much a laughing stock. He hasn't gone away. He's been driven underground. So I see now that I've stopped NLQ, a lot of these guys are starting to get bold and they're coming back. I thought I was done with all this nonsense. I thought I was done to ever talking about religion ever again. But I see now that there is a real need to look at these people and see what it is that they're promoting. Okay, tomorrow I think I'm going to talk about a weird topic. I think I want to talk about the paranormal. I don't know if any of you have had any experience. I know I talked a little bit about UFOs one time. That's the kind of weird stuff that interests me that I really want to talk about more than religion. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I'm at 45, so that means I'm running out of oxygen very rapidly. You guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Wednesday's a good day. I can't wait to hear what Todd Chrisley has to say in his podcast. He is making me laugh with his witty, petty self. I'd like to have died last week when he said something about scratching your watch and winding your ass. I thought that was hysterical. Love you guys. Y'all have a great day.